Imagine being a hotshot Hollywood agent who is living a lavish life and has the power to get any girl you want. But the next thing you know, you are invited to a deadly game, betrayed, mentally tortured, and trapped in an escape room where there is no way out. Soon you find out it is not a game but a revenge plot arranged to right the wrongs of your ugly past. But now it is too late to act as things have exceeded dramatically against you. What would you do in this situation, and how would you beat Escape Puzzle of Fear? A group of strangers who are not our main characters enter a room where they are accompanied by a creepy adult in a baby dress. As time passes, they finally manage to find 3 bottles that are meant to be attached to their fixed spot for the room's door to be opened. After all the stages of this seemingly harmless game end, the door unlocks with one of the game's head staff members, Tabitha, congratulating the first batch of escape room players for completing the game and making it out alive. I know saying, "You have made it out alive" sounds like a red flag, but it may be part of the act. We are now shown the actual main characters of the movie. Matthew, who's a highly talented and successful Hollywood agent living in a lavish bungalow with his girlfriend Brittany. Despite living in this luxurious lifestyle, she doesn't seem happy with things and acts quite strange when alone. We see her have a flashback of being in a hospital as a young girl, constantly screaming that she sees a monster in the room while being strapped to a bed. If the camera's perspective is to be believed, something is in fact in the room watching her, but no one else seems to be able to see anything there. Back to our weird Tabitha at the hotel, she's waiting anxiously for someone and growing increasingly impatient while her colleague Sam calms down her inner Hulk. After the man they were waiting for finally arrives, he hands them a bag full of several needles of some heavy drug before Tabitha shoots him down. Tabitha's not-so-stable mind is revealed further when she returns from the cleanup of this murder and shares with Sam that it was just another drug deal gone bad despite everyone's hopes that legalizing it would quell criminality. Personally, I am feeling quite strange about the whole situation. Either she is brain sick or working at the escape room game has caused her personality to change drastically. Whatever it is, it doesn't seem normal. On the other hand, Matthew's real self begins to unravel when he tries to hit on someone else's wife, despite being in a relationship with Brittany. It seems like he does this often, proving himself a disloyal partner. Our suspicions for Matthew are confirmed when we see his ex-girlfriend and his best friend's wife, Angela, discussing how he can't be with one woman at a time. If we talk about her, she seems to have some loyalty issues as well, as she keeps giving her husband Tyler a hard time for not being as financially blessed as Matthew. To make matters worse, she's got her eyes on his best friend and has no shame in her game. Tyler feels uncomfortable listening to the story, as if he had done something quite terrible during that time. Once they've freshened up, the couple sit down to a candlelight dinner. As they enjoy their meal, Matthew takes a trip down memory lane and shares a wild story from his and Tyler's teenage years back in 1995. While having fun on Halloween, they came across this old house for sale, broke and got drunk, and started tearing it up. Tyler feels uncomfortable listening to the story, as if he had done something quite terrible during that time. Whether it is Matthew's non-stop serious narration style or Tyler's concerned and scared attitude, it is making for a pretty tense dinner conversation. But the conversation ends up entertaining everyone by the end, after he says they were arrested by the cops and made to wait until their parents showed up. Tyler breathes a sigh of relief as he listens to the change in the story, making it clear that the actual plot is something different altogether. Amid this cozy get-together, a crow crashes into the window and gets injured. To end its suffering, Matthew stomps on it Dead Space style. This brutal scene brings back a bitter memory for Brittany, as it's revealed she was there at that abandoned house from the story when she was just 9. After a brief meeting with him outside her house, Brittany, whose real name is apparently Emily, was trick-or-treating with her little sister Mandy. Dressed in their Halloween costumes later, they visited a house for some candy, not realizing it was abandoned. And being the curious one, Mandy entered the house through the unlocked door and began to look for the residents. When Emily follows her to the living room, she's paralyzed with fear seeing 2 masked teenage boys scaring little Mandy, all in the name of fun. This is of course Tyler and Matthew, who were so intoxicated that they chased Mandy with a knife until she fell into a deep empty pool and tragically lost her life. Tyler couldn't enjoy the show anymore and tried to stop his friend, but he was unable to do anything to protect the little child. Tyler urged to call the cops, but Matthew threatened to blame him for the murder of 2 dead girls. Terrified, Tyler backs off, with Matthew threatening Emily to keep her mouth shut, or otherwise they will kill the rest of her family too. We can see the regret on Tyler's face, but Matthew has nothing to worry about. The two boys depart from the property, leaving distressed Brittany with her dead sister's body. Let's rewind and analyze what you and I could do if we were in this situation, trapped in an abandoned house with two drunk teenage boys. First of all, their mother shouldn't have allowed her 6- and 9-year-old to go walking the streets unsupervised, Halloween or not. I don't care if they live in a safe neighborhood, it's a huge risk to send children that young out alone, and I would at minimum follow and watch them from a distance for safety. That way I could stop them from making dumb decisions, like entering an abandoned house looking for treats. But okay, what to do once we are in an abandoned house with two drunk teenage boys? Well, for the warm logic solution, instead of waiting for my sister's death, I would have created a distraction allowing her to escape. Screaming, throwing objects at the attackers, or even calling them aloud are some options to draw their attention or distract them from their actual plans. The biggest problem with this plan is that there are two of them, so one could chase after us while the other goes after our sister. Still worth a try. The cold logic solution is to just leave and go for help. This would have still led to our sister's untimely demise, but could have at least also led to the teenager's capture, so we wouldn't need to enact a revenge plan years down the line. Let's get back to some serious solutions recommended by experts to deal with your attacker older and stronger than you. When dealing with a knife attack, you'll want to stay calm, be rational, and defend yourself if needed. However, in this situation, being a 9-year-old, we can't do much. If you can't escape or defend yourself, stay hidden and quiet. If there are any rooms with a lock, lock yourself and your sister in there and barricade the door with anything you can find. This will make it more difficult for the boys to get to you. From there, we can shout and call outside for help, as there should be other trick or treaters and actual responsible parents nearby that could hear and come to our aid. Or we can make a run for it out an alternate exit or window. The following morning, Tyler gets a call from his friend Joe, who has 4 tickets to the new escape room. His plan somehow got cancelled, giving our two couples a chance to do something daring and fun together. After watching the trailer on TV, everybody seems excited except Matthew. However, when he sees how enthusiastic Brittany is about it, he agrees to join the friends and have a once-in-a-lifetime experience. Soon, they arrive at the Escape Hotel, where they have a reservation for the crime and justice section. The group is taken to a room made to look like a police department and are treated as suspects who are arrested for the disappearance of 2 little girls. That's a strange coincidence. Brittany gets scared for a moment, but Matthew assures her that it is just part of the game. After taking their cell phones, wallet, and other possessions, the officer leads them to the lineup, where they encounter 3 other suspects: a flirt father, Keith, his daughter Jo, and an escape room expert, Robert. Embodying the role of an officer, Sam arrives with Tabitha in the room and informs the suspects how the cops have found a piece of evidence that leads them to believe that a person among them knows the whereabouts of the abducted young girls. The 2 little angels were last seen trick or treating just before sundown, and the police believe that somebody coaxed them off the path. Alright, this is going beyond coincidence at this point. I think I'm having flashbacks, just like our female character Brittany. From now on, Sam and his team will be watching all the suspects very closely as they think the culprit is in the room. To proceed with the case, the group is taken to the interrogation room, where Sam gets fully immersed in his character, pounding his hands on the table and threatening all the people to confess, or otherwise they will do it the hard way. Watching the seemingly entertaining act, everybody struggles to contain their giggles, especially Angela and Tyler, but things quickly turn ominous when Sam claims that one of them is going to be begging to confess by the end of the night. Despite knowing it is all part of the act, the eerie atmosphere and the weight of the accusations leave everyone feeling a little uneasy. I mean, who wouldn't be spooked by the prospect of being grilled in an interrogation room over such a horrific crime? Giving the group of suspects 1 hour to confess or escape, Sam leaves the room with Tabitha. If I were Matthew or Tyler, I would have suspected the danger and taken this coincidence quite seriously. How can you not relate this game to the biggest incident of your life? Without wasting time, everybody begins to look for clues, with Robert finding a police report and Tyler pointing out code numbers from the given information. With teamwork and critical thinking, these suspects finally manage to complete enough puzzles to acquire a key for a locked door within the room that leads to a hallway, but not the entrance they came in from. Guess this escape room is more of a series of rooms. Several members of the group exit the hall, but unfortunately Keith and his daughter got locked inside before they could leave. What's worse, the key isn't working anymore. Unlike others who are quite concerned about the whole situation, Robert suggests moving on as he thinks maintenance will take care of Keith and Joe. He believes the game owners are using them as moles to throw them off the trail and waste their time. A fair assumption. As the game progresses, our suspects whip out their forensic light to follow some footprints. And before you know it, they're wandering down a creepy hallway with some mentally ill patients locked in their cells. It's like a scene straight out of a horror movie. Nobody has a problem with that except our Hollywood agent, who sees it as his worst nightmare. He thinks Tyler has something to do with it because only he knows of his dark past. The group follows the footprints and reaches a courtroom where the judge and the public are wearing weird masks. As Robert tries to touch a woman's mask, a loud scream followed by a sudden power outage and the disappearance of the entire audience shocks him to his very core. Now Matthew is feeling a little too uncomfortable as he instructs Robert to think hard and get him out of this place. Meanwhile, Brittany finds a paper that mentions the elder kidnapped girl as a client who is wrongly accused of murdering her little sister and is, in fact, the victim of the same crime. It says that the girl neither had the means nor the motive to perpetrate the murder of her own sister, and the big palm-sized bruises on her body suggested that these were defensive wounds. Alright, clearly this place is recreating the case from the past, and since the movie spoiled who Brittany really is, we should in no way be shocked to find she somehow set all this up. Let's see where she's going with it though. As Matthew nervously takes a seat, the ominous figure of the masked judge booms out the word guilty, as if it is a verdict specifically meant for him. Suddenly, the power outage occurs, followed by Angela feeling an eerie presence around her, spooking the hell out of everyone. The female judge orders our characters to explore Exhibit B, which has a VHS player. With Matthew's help, Robert finds the tape, but as he touches the player, a sudden and clearly very subtle electric shock claims his life. Matthew thinks it is part of the game until Tyler confirms that the man has no pulse. Meanwhile, Angela and Brittany vanish into thin air like they have been beamed up by aliens. Suddenly, the VHS player turns on. Our officer Sam tries to draw the duo's attention to Halloween 1995 before instructing them to explore yet another room that just opened up. Our remaining suspects follow Sam's instructions and end up in a hospital room, a little too familiar for Matthew. Thinking that Tyler has betrayed him and he is the one behind this creepy escape room thing, Matthew picks up a fire extinguisher to put an end to this insanity. However, before he can do anything, Sam reappears on one of the TV screens and claims he is powerless in this game and won't be able to harm anyone against their will. Matthew gives Tyler a good whack on the head though, knocking him out. I guess that warning was more metaphorical than literal. He soon goes unconscious as well, thanks to sleeping gas being released into the room. Looks like this place has a lot more stranger things happening than simple escape puzzles. Let's look back and see if we could have done anything about them. Let's find out some possible solutions to get out of a locked room. First things first, take a deep breath and try not to panic. Now, let's assess the situation. Is there a window in the room that you can open? If so, congratulations, you've got yourself an escape route. Just be careful not to injure yourself in the process. You don't want to end up breaking a leg. If there is no window, like in Keith's case, you can try using some simple tools to pick the lock. A bobby pin, paperclip, or even a toothpick can sometimes do the trick. Keith could have used a fire extinguisher to break the door or the lock. You can look around your room and find similar heavyweight objects to smash the door down. If I were in this situation, I simply could have used my credit card that I don't mind potentially bending or even breaking in the process. It works by sliding the card into the gap between the door and the door frame, with the short end of the card facing the latch. Wiggle the card up and down while applying pressure towards the latch, and see if you can get the cards to slide under the latch. Now, with a bit of finesse and determination, use the card to push the latch back and release it from the strike plate. It may take a few tries and you may need to bend the card slightly to get it to work, but with some luck you should be able to pop that door open in no time. And if all else fails, well, there's always the classic method of banging on the door and hoping someone hears you. But sometimes, it doesn't work when people prefer completing the game instead of rescuing you. As for the man who was somehow shocked to death by a VCR, if I were one of our characters, I would have at least performed CPR before announcing his death. Compressing the chest at a rate of 100 to 120 compressions per minute while giving rescue breaths can increase the chance of the victim's survival. And if that's not achieved, you will have a sense of satisfaction that you have done something instead of just assuming they are gone. Switch off the power to the video player and make sure the area is safe before starting CPR, of course. The characters could have used the wooden chairs or other non-conductive materials in the room to turn off the device while ensuring they won't get a shock, too. Now, I can understand Matthew being suspicious of Tyler during all this. After all, it was his idea to do the escape room in the first place, and as mentioned, this particular setup is way too similar to real-world events from their past that only he would know. However, attacking him wouldn't solve anything or help us escape in any way, so we could have our doubts and be wary of him, but go along with the game until we see an opportunity to leave, avoiding any suspicious traps along the way, of course. Or we could capture Tyler and tie him up, interrogating him about his motivation for all of this. This option would give away the fact that we are aware of things, but would also prevent a potentially innocent friend from being harmed, as well as hopefully get us some answers. We can't learn much from a dead man after all. Matthew eventually wakes up in a small room, with Brittany and Tyler lying unconscious. She's lying in a kiddie pool and dressed just like she was during Halloween in '95, with a needle stuck in her jugular, presumably filled with whatever drug that was used to knock her out. If she's behind this entire scheme, why is there a syringe injected into her neck? As Matthew recalls his other heinous crimes, we learn that killing Mandy and ruining Brittany's life was not just a teenage mistake. As he grew up, he turned into a ruthless man who enticed young girls with offers of wealth and good looks, only to abduct them and take their lives brutally when they failed to meet his expectations. Now he thinks that the family of those victims might be behind this game. As his rage is boiling over, an anonymous figure is thrown into the room, unwittingly becoming the target of Matthew's fury. Meanwhile, Tyler regains consciousness only to realize that he and his friend both are in some serious trouble. As Matthew removes the person's mask, he is unable to incorporate what he has just seen. It was Angela, whose mouth was duct taped so she couldn't defend herself. The atmosphere gets a little scarier when Sam's words echo in the room. There can be no secrets if somebody knows. It is your choice who lives and who goes. The words resonate in Matthew's mind, forcing him to kill the only person who knows his secrets. It turns out that he paid for Tyler's silence all these years. However, he now suspects that his friend may have received tempting propositions from the victims' families to betray him. There is a point to note that Tyler was not just part of the incident that happened in 1995, but he also knew about other crimes that Matthew had committed. While Tyler keeps proving his innocence, Matthew continues blaming him for betrayal and dishonesty. Tired of Matthew's accusations, Tyler gets up, grabs the syringe, and tries to stab him, but becomes a victim of his own attack. Suddenly, Brittany wakes up and starts behaving oddly, all while trying to jog her boyfriend's memory of their first meeting. And then she begins to unfold how she studied him from afar for a very long time in order to confirm whether he was a troubled child or had problems at home that made him commit the crime on that Halloween evening. It turns out that the cops found Brittany, or should I say Emily, guilty of her sister's murder. She was arrested and taken to a mental hospital where Matthew even once paid her a visit to check if she had been declared crazy as he planned. Brittany told everyone about how a monster killed her sister and how that monster even visited her in the hospital, literally paving the way for her diagnosis as a certified crazy person. Not gonna lie, hate him or love him, but this Matthew is a pretty genius dude. Just bad he underestimated the occurrence of other evil geniuses. As time passed, she made friends there, and you can imagine how excited a bunch of lunatics get when you pitch them a revenge plot. Tabitha was one of the patients and Sam was their therapist. Keith was one of the patient's father, and Robert was the one who helped her get all the information about Matthew's heinous crimes after she was discharged years later. Hearing the truth, Matthew has a bittersweet reaction as he feels betrayed and also fascinated, wondering how a person can pull off this entire scheme with a bunch of maniacs. He now remembers Emily, a sweet little girl whose life he ruined due to his reckless evil nature. Instead of repenting of his sins, he claims that he dated Brittany because she would be the perfect victim with no family and records. But over time, he couldn't help but believe she was an ideal life partner. However, his buttering efforts, or maybe sincere ones, are in vain when Tyler gets up and introduces himself as Brittany's boyfriend. It turns out that they had been dating for 4 years after Brittany approached him, intending to get close to her sister's murderer. They had a little chat and quickly bonded over Matthew. Just as our enraged killer tries to kill another human being, the cops show up just in time and arrest Matthew for a murder attempt. Everybody, including Joe, Keith, Sam, and the apparently not dead Robert, give their shocking statements, pointing their fingers at Matthew, saying he had gone completely off his rocker and had been making some terrifying death threats. Sounds like the tables have turned for Matthew. Now he is the one who is considered crazy, and no one believes his side of the story. As he is arrested and taken to the car, Brittany, with an expression of satisfaction, can recall the precious words of her doctor Sam. You can do anything you want if you put your mind to it. If you believe in monsters, you have to believe that you can beat them. Were these the best choice of actions though? Let's look back. First of all, Matthew had no reason to strangle the victim tossed into the room with him. He should have realized they were thrown in there against their will, and just like with Tyler, killing them would solve nothing. If he truly believed they were involved, he should keep them alive for questioning. Guess all that talk about past killings just had him in the mood for it again, I suppose. Now, I don't know how a little girl was accused of doing that murder, and I doubt even a 9-year-old would describe the man as a monster instead of a man with a knife enough times that she was diagnosed as crazy. But even if she was, it's fairly convenient for her that her therapist was just as murder-happy and deranged as the rest of the patients he treats, and that they were able to assist her in setting all this up. But even if they were, is this really the best revenge? Taking almost 2 decades just to trick your sister's killer into an escape room for a gotcha moment after giving him morning for several weeks. If all this was just going to lead to his arrest and we had evidence of all his misdeeds throughout the years, we should have just turned that in from the start without having to sleep with the guy. Maybe it was for the heartbreak angle as his friend and lover betrayed him, but Matthew doesn't seem like the kind of guy who would value that sort of thing in the first place. So yeah, an overly complicated and expensive plan with too many loose ends involved, mixed with unnecessary intercourse, leads me to say this plan was a waste of everybody's time. That's it from me. Do me a favor, beat that like button and visit us again next week. Until then, binge another one and peace out.